What an intro that was. What's up, everyone?
Ben?
Hello. Welcome back to the channel. Amazing live stream for you tonight. Jen and I have been backstage reading all of your comments. Wow, you guys, everybody's active. What is it? Is it Wednesday
I love
night? What was it, Wednesday? It's Tuesday night. What night is it right now?
It's Monday.
Right. So it's for a Monday night. We got a good crowd. Good to see you all. How's everyone doing? Hope you liked the intro, and it was relatively generic, but we're trying something new. Big Dog, what's up? You got to ask. Yeah, I asked. Big Dog, we appreciate your comments in the background going on.
We do very much.
And good to see the crews all here. Great group for Monday night. Apologies for my confusion. Jenna and I had kind of a long work day, and we were here. I am thinking it's Thursday already. Never mind. Tamar, first in the chat. Big Dog again. Northwoods Whiskey Nerds. Encouraging everybody to give some thumbs up. Please do give a thumbs up, like the video, even though it's started, and all we've done is talk about one another. Jenna, how are you tonight? What's new in your world?
You know what? I am fantastic. I am just thrilled to be here on this fine Thursday, Wednesday, Monday night, pacing through some pretty exceptional whiskey that I'm really stoked to talk about. So I'm good.
Yeah, we were
excited for our big event next week.
That's true. We won't spend too much time, but I think for everybody who's watching us right now, quick little preview. Next week is the big gathering festivities here in the US. We'll be making an announcement at the end of this week as to what's going on. And for anybody going to the event in New York, I think we announced it, and all 100 spots were gone within the hour. I think
that's the case. Flash.
So if you're in New York, we'll be there. Our whole SMWS team is flying in, but we'll save that for next week. We got a lot going on in the days to come, and all exciting stuff. A lot taking place here on YouTube, I will say. So should we get into some whiskey? Should
we dive in?
Should we dive in? Yes, of course. We shall dive. We debated the under the sea background for this Distillery Dive, which is kind of funny because we at the Scotch Wine Society really go in on our words and themes. But nonetheless, we've defaulted to a pick of the Scottish Highlands, lovely sunset. Why? Probably because we're going to the Highlands with this Distillery Dive. So first, we're going through 3 whiskeys today. These are all being released tomorrow, so you're the first ones to see them. We'll be the first ones, I guess, to taste them. Jenna, you've kind of done a quick run through of the whiskeys, as you said. Like, you're just a very quick impression. I have yet to open these bottles. I will do so here, and but nonetheless, we'll give our really sort of first thoughts and impressions on these 3 whiskeys. But before we get started, it is Monday. Who's got a dram in hand? What's in your glass? Drop a comment, and it's interesting to see. Funny enough, we were talking about this. Jen, did you have a little welcome dram or starter dram yourself? I don't think you did.
I did.
Oh.
But it was one of these.
I'm sorry? Oh, it was one of these? Oh, okay. Well, that counts. Well, I was going to say, I had another whiskey I won't reveal, but it was actually from the same distillery, a cask that we released back, I think about a year ago. So anyway, some comments coming in. Greg has said he has 112.77. Jenna, where are you in the codes? Do you remember all the codes in cast? Like, do those mean anything to you when you read that?
Yeah, I do remember some of the codes, most of the codes. I still, even though I've been doing this for quite some years, I still have to have a cheat sheet. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 112 is... Let me check my cheat sheet.
I'm just curious if you remember, like, when someone says like the number, like 112.77. Do you remember what that whiskey is?
Yeah, for a good majority of them, I do. But there are some that still get me from time to time. And I was right. Yes. I'm glad I still got it.
What do you still got?
That I remembered what 112 was.
Oh, Greg says it's called the Devil in Pink Silky Pajamas.
Oh, yeah.
That's the name I remember. See? Anyway.
I do remember that. Yeah. I think something else. One of our other members was having that over the weekend, and that was a cool whiskey.
Yeah. George Kaplan says, I bet Mark Broda is hoping for a deep, rich, and dried fruits dive or Dirta dive. Okay, well, I don't think anybody's going to guess what this is. And I just want to preface this by saying I'm looking in the comments. Oh, is it this? Oh, is it that? It's to be this distillery or this flavor profile. Yeah, we're always trying to tread in new waters here. So like when we let's just say about Distillery Dive before we get to tasting these whiskeys. So the idea came, I think it was like a year ago or so. I remember like Tom and I were talking about this. We're looking at all the whiskeys that come out over the next year, and we're thinking, okay, Tom, maybe you guys know Tom, he's been on this channel before, but he's organizes all the outturns. And we were looking at this and just saying, okay, what orchestrating like the selections, what should go on what. And we found in some cases there were very similar casks that have come through, like 3 or 4, maybe that were distilled on the same date and were in different types of casks, or maybe they were from the same distillery and they were different styles, peated, unpeated. There are all these different kind of connections that we thought. And we were just thinking, we're like, you know what? We released about 20 or so whiskeys every month. Let's try to give members something to really learn from. And what better way to learn than tasting? So this is one Distillery Dive that we have going. I guess we should just, how do you want to do this, Jenna? Do you want to do one at a time? Do you want to just reveal all the same time?
No, I think we should just do one at a time. We'll walk through them, taste through them, give our notes. And I think this is just a really cool way to actually see how unique a single cask is, right? And I always like to tell people a single cask is like a little whiskey snapshot in time. Like you just capture that one moment in time, the second it comes out of that barrel. And I think this is really just 3 really cool examples of just how unique a single cask can be. And even though they're in maybe the same cask type or from the same distillery or distilled on the same day, how just each of those can be so different.
Yeah. So tonight, what we've done is we've chosen, I think for this dive, we thought, let's really go deep. No pun intended, because the dive and the whole ocean theme that we try to suppress. But, and we've done in the past, we've done same distilleries. Of course, it's a theme Distillery Dive, but we've done different types of casks, different styles, like peated versus unpeated. This one, we wanted to go as close to nature as possible, in the sense that we have 3 different casks, 3 different bottles of whiskey from 3 different casks, I should say here, that were all distilled on the same date and matured for the exact same period of time in the same type of cask. So kind of sounds like, okay, well, they're pretty similar, right? What's interesting about this is, at the society, I know members might be familiar with this, or I'm sure you're familiar with this if anyone's not, how it works. Every week, our tasting panel in Edinburgh gets together and selects different whiskeys and improves the whiskeys and scores them and improves them for bottling for members. And I think in most cases, if not all cases, they don't actually know what it is. It's mostly done blind. So interestingly, these 3 whiskeys have found their way into 3 different flavor profiles, even though it's the same distillery, distilled on the same date, same amount of time, in the same type of cask, and ABV across the board. I'm looking here, 57.5% to 58.6%, so pretty close. Yet I think it was so we saw this on paper, we're like, wait a second, this is crazy. There are 3 different profiles. Everything on paper is the same. So so that's kind of where we're coming from. So yeah. Let's go. Should we just, Jenna, if you want to reveal what they are?
Let's dive in. Yep, let's do it. All right. So the first one is going to be cask 19.65. It's called 50s Nostalgia. It's an 18-year Highland in our juicy oak and vanilla flavor profile, and first full ex-bourbon barrel at 57.5% ABV.
So based on what we're saying is this one is 18 years, juicy oak and vanilla. The next one, okay. Well, should we dive in and reveal the next ones, or should we just wait? Let's just
do it. Let's just do it.
Okay. The next one is going to be in this fuchsia color that I think is a fuchsia shade of pink, which we call sweet, fruity, and mellow, which is interesting. And the third one is going to be spicy and sweet. Dun dun dun. I know there's a huge cult following for spicy and sweet out there, but truly, I'm excited. So 3 different profiles again. We're getting this all 18 years, kind of the classic Scotch age of 18 years. And yeah, all these are dropping tomorrow individually. You can also order all 3 as a bundle. So,
yep.
How do you want to do it, Jenna? You want to do it one at a time, and then we'll.
Yeah, let's dive into the first one.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead.
Oh yeah, you got to open yours. I have to wait for you.
No, go. Don't wait for me. What I'm gonna do, Jenna, I'm gonna open all 3 of these now, and then I'll let them breathe a little bit.
All right.
Right away, like first of all, huge pour, but also very dark, sort of maybe like a light amber. 18 years, first fill bourbon wood, and you don't really see casks. We don't see too many casks from first fill bourbon at this sort of age.
A lot of it. Yeah, not at this age. But I have to say that every time I see a first fill bourbon barrel, I get very excited. I've been definitely gravitating more towards that style of whiskey lately. Really, like the last year, I've just really been. Honestly, juicy oak and vanilla is probably one of my favorite flavor profiles. If I had to pick one, spicy and dry, probably at the top of my list. But I really do love juicy oak and vanilla. And lately I've just really been gravitating more towards them. So I'm stoked to dig into this one. Ooh.
Super D says chug, chug, chug. All right, Super D, they're coming, dude. I think there's a warning on the back of our labels that says whiskey's not for chug.
Scott says it every single stream, video. Anytime Scott talks about the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, he's like, that's how he ends the conversation.
So what's your thoughts on this first one? Juicy oak and vanilla, and I agree, kind of a profile that I tend to gravitate towards.
Yeah.
As well.
I just think there's a lot of like diversity in flavor in that profile. What you think, oh, it's like all ex bourbon, it's all gonna have like kind of the same like thread. But I have found so many casks that I just really love that are just so different in this flavor profile. I'm getting like
you know what I'm gonna do? Okay, well, not gonna get ahead of ourselves here, but I did just do a quick little sniff test, and all 3 are significantly different.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, which I'm relieved. We hope for that, but they are. I mean, they are in 3 different flavor profiles. So somebody who knows what they're talking about also put them in there. But right away, I'm reminded of this one now. 18 years, quite a decent amount of time in the cask. It just right from the first nosing, the aroma is so juicy and fruity, but yet instantly, like, you get my point is just sniffing for the first time, you can really tell the age is there. Like, it's spent a lot of time. It's intoxicating. The fruits are a bit over ripened, a little sort of like almost like a fermented fruit aroma for me. But
so this is like if you like chop down a pine tree, and so you have like a big chunk of fresh pine, and then you just smushed a bunch of fruit into it and ate that smushed fruit off of this like fresh pine wood slab. That's what I'm getting on this.
It's so old world Scotch to me. Like it takes me back to like some bottles.
The old days.
The old days. Well, I'm just thinking of bottles that I've tasted that may have been of similar age, but bottled 20 years ago, like you know, or something. And I was about to say the 90s, but I was like, wait a second, that's actually 30 years ago. But you know what I mean? It's got an old world feel. It's sort of a very classical aroma, just right off the bat. But I love that. But immediately, that sort of memory is washed away because this is full cast strength. You can just, and maybe it's that we know that it is this way, that it is non-chill filtered, but because like there's just a density to the aroma, it's very potent. I haven't added any water to it yet.
It is super intense on the nose. The nose is just super, like you said, dense and rich, and like it's like it feels heavy. Like when you breathe it in your nostrils, it's like heavy oils and heavy aromas.
Yeah. It's I think you tasted it briefly. I'm gonna
very briefly
give it a taste.
Like it was like rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. The three of them.
Cheers, everybody.
There's like a, oh yeah, all right, Kelly.
Oh,
I'm still on the nose. Like the nose on this is like I could spend a minute.
This is the first pour out of a bottle. This one hasn't had time to breathe yet, but it's immediately sort of like very viscous texture, mouth coating, explosive. Really, what did I say? 57.89%. Surprisingly like palatable for such a high strength.
But it is like a little mini like cloud of just like kind of explodes mushroom cloud of flavor.
I think I shared my very first impression on the nose. It was very fruity and in sort of like inviting. On the palate, I get more like a baked bread and it's buttery, and and obviously the oak is more prevalent on the palate. So I had this sort of like this idea of like this fresh like fruit plate kind of thing, and it's now more of like, well, maybe because I'm looking at this sunset over Scotland, I'm thinking like a sunset in an orchard type of. There's like that overripened like apples. Like baked pie. There's a lot of that going on. Very sort of early autumnal, which is where we're at in the month of September.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, at least, I think nose and palate match really well on this. I'm getting like I said, there's like this pine note that is like almost like a little bitter pine, like in the center of my palate, which I really dig that kind of profile. And like the fruits, like all on the sides of my palate, and it's like those stewed fruits and like wood, and there's like a little earthy something happening in here, and that just could be the age, but I'm excited to really dig into the next two because this is really good.
I've had some water, and I'm going to see again, fresh out of the bottle, hasn't had much time to breathe. But as I mentioned, I thought it was really enjoyable, neat. Like I didn't, I could have continued on that way.
Okay.
It's interesting. Did you add water to yours just now?
I did. I just added a little bit of water.
It's interesting because like for bourbon cask matured whiskeys, typically I find maybe for all, but adding water tends to bring more of the fruity notes forward a little bit. And I think there's like a chemical explanation someone once gave me as to why that is. But for some reason, I didn't get that on this one. Like the first nose, full neat out of the bottle, was much fruitier. Now it's sort of evolving more into the kind of what I experienced at the palate, more baked goods, not as fruity, more a little bit sort of like warm autumnal spices. What do you think?
I was getting more like creamy profile, like with water. Like it turns that nose a little more up to like a creamy vanilla texture. But there is like a nutty, like a nuttiness to this on the nose. Like warm vanilla, like custard with nuts on top with water.
I think everything you said is exactly what I'm tasting, which is kind of rare for two palates to experience the exact same thing, but that was like spot on. I mean, for the name 50s Nostalgia, I guess, is a good indicator that it is kind of an old school profile. I'm assuming that's where they got that from.
I almost say I like this a little better with water. Like I really just like the delivery of flavor with a little bit of water. And maybe it's because like this, again, like I rapid fire taste these. So this was like my first real opportunity to really dig into it. But yeah, there's just like a very creamy vanilla, nutty, like profile on this that I get with water that I wasn't getting with it neat, and it's delicious.
We've gone back and forth on this a lot about addition of water and really the role it plays. And I feel like there was a time when you were like not adding any water and you were like,
no.
And I was like, I had this opinion that like every whiskey is better with water, but I agree. Like this is more, I feel like it's, like out of respect, like adding water allows it to come alive a little bit. Like I feel like it's respectful for whiskey to like show itself in like the optimal state, but whatever. But I actually really liked it neat, like as an experience. Like I was like, because then I'm thinking about
it's like, oh wow,
this to me is like an 18-year-old like luxury whiskey in terms of like when you think of that, and that's a term that you could whatever that means, but I think of this as something that evokes a very sort of luxurious type of environment. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's what you.
Ben, like I taste whiskeys and it's like reading a good book. It's like it takes you somewhere.
Right, but the profile, it's elegant, it's approachable, it's soft, and this is kind of, it's a very, I'm thinking of people like if you want to impress a friend that comes over, they like whiskey, but they don't love whiskey. You want to start them up with something like this could work there. It's also gonna be hella strong, but I just love that. I love that it is that sort of profile, but it's cask strength and it's so oily, and it's so so it's a little rough around the edges, or it's just like, I don't know. I'll think of a better analogy. Anyway,
I didn't read any of the tasting notes beforehand because I don't do that anymore. But I do want to read the tasting notes if you're down with that.
Yeah.
All right. So this has a gorgeous, silky, and richly textural Highland malt with a distinctive and gloopy old school twang about it. Waxes, fruits, and wood spices.
It's funny, the old school twang. We weren't even alive in the 50s, and yet I think we kind of picked that up as well.
There is a nostalgia about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a term for people who like love to be like back in different time like eras. There's a word for it. They made a movie about it, Midnight in Paris, with one of the Wilson brothers. I can't remember what the term is, but yeah, there is definitely like an old school just like soul to this whiskey.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Eric, wait, Whiskey Study says your shelves look very similar. Did you buy them? Eric, first of all, I owe you a stream, buddy. Eric invited me on the channel. I couldn't make it, and I love watching his videos. But yes, we got them from the famous Swedish designer IKEA. Probably
the men's are white, mine are gray.
And I was looking at yours. Yours is bigger. What is that the same thing? You have like the thing.
Yeah. No, so I just did 4. It's like 4 individual ones, and I just did notes on the ones in the middle. So it's like it takes up like my whole wall. So
they're okay. I did 3 individual. I forgot it's the individual thing. Wow, yours is substantially larger. Okay. Question from Super D says, how do you guys prep your palate before you taste? That's a good question.
That is a great question. So anytime I have a tasting, I always torture my family with eating dinner at like 5 o'clock because I don't want what I eat for dinner. And I had a really good dinner tonight. I really don't want what I'm eating to affect what I'm tasting later on. So I eat dinner really early, and then I brush my teeth like an hour before a tasting. And then I just have water for the hour leading up to the tasting.
Yeah, it's like that hour before. Yeah. Some people will say, well, like, don't do anything like the whole afternoon or even, come on, we got to eat.
We got to eat.
But I drink usually some black coffee. And, if it's a little late at night, I want a full cup, I'll just at least have some black coffee in my palate. I find that's a great neutralizer. Like Jenna, you're doing, if you smell your own arm, smell your own scent, that sort of neutralizes you a little bit. But I do try to drink
in here somewhere.
Yeah, I do try to drink a lot of water and maybe eat some crackers, like something very neutral. As well. And Paul says, how do you explain the difference in the bottles that are so much the same? I think that's what we're diving
That's the
into.
task.
But I think it's think of it this way, the uniqueness of single cask whiskeys in essence, like why we exist as an organization, and the fascination. Look, I mean, they say that if you were to chop down a tree and the same tree and build two different casks from, it's funny, I've always heard this hypothetical, and now we're tasting it, but I've always heard that if you chop down a tree and build two different casks out of the said tree and fill them with the same spirit off the stills at the same time and mature them in a warehouse side by side for the same amount of time, it would always produce different results. And that's really, I've always heard that concept. We've sort of experienced that. And today we're actually tasting those differences. And the distillate's the same, the cask type is the same, but no two like square inches of a tree are the same, or maybe the square inch is the same. No two square yards are the same. But really it just happens what the interaction that takes place between the wood and the liquid over time, as the air moves in and out, is naturally inconsistent.
Yeah, but isn't that the case with like a lot of things? Like I know even just like when I bake a cake, even if I did like the exact same measurements, the exact same way, everything is the exact same, they're going to be a little different every time.
It's also called being a husband. Sometimes you think you're doing the right thing the same exact time and you don't know, you get a different response. So it's like, anyway, yeah. Let's move on to number 2, Jenna. What do you think?
Yeah, just really quick. We were talking about how do we prepare for a tasting, and there were some really great comments in here. I believe Northwoods Whiskey Nerd says that they dance to Richard Simmons beforehand, and Eric White Whiskey Studies says that he 15 minutes dancing, listening to Donna Summer, which is so awesome.
Wow.
I'm gonna take that. I might have to do that myself. I love those. Those are great.
Nice.
All right, are we getting into the second one?
Number 2. Sorry, you want me to pull it up? I did this whole thing where I did this scroll thing. A sweet moment. Kind of a nice, short, simple name. Very off-brand in its lack of real, like, sort of poetry. But I kind of like that, actually. Sweet moment.
Okay.
I get one more nose at the first one.
This is very different. These are very clearly two different whiskeys.
Not only are these different whiskeys, I would have never guessed they were from the same distillery.
Yeah, I would not think that this was. Yeah.
This is like I think you called this every time earlier. It's like reminds me of a certain lowland distillery.
Yeah. Right.
That does uniquely adopted the uniquely unique the triple distiller whiskeys. How do I say it? They uniquely distilled 3 times, but so fundamentally different. And this is the sweet, fruity, and mellow flavor profile. And I would say that's a perfect example. Like those 3 words, sweet, fruity, mellow.
Yeah, I agree. This one I find to be way more fruit forward than the first one. I got more like earth and like wood and pine and like forest on that first one. That's what I'm definitely getting more like fresh fruit, like raspberry, like fruit tart, like fresh fruit tart is what I'm getting on this one. And Elhan's asking a great question. Are these hogsheads? If so, there may be differences coming up from when they are rebuilt. These are all barrels, all ex-bourbon barrels.
All first fill bourbon barrels.
First fill bourbon barrels.
A point I saw from Paul Flexner. Could they be from different bourbon distilleries? I would say anything is possible, but that's very unlikely. I think the differences that we're experiencing are pretty consistent with many others we've had, just with single cask whiskey, Now, are they as profound as, we're sort of just starting off the second one right now. Are the differences as profound as a peated whiskey in a bourbon cask versus a Speyside whiskey and sherry cask? Of course not, no. But, within the spectrum of Scotch, they're more similar. But just if you were to line up a bunch of bourbons and people sort of like kill each other over finding certain bourbons over others, you could all say it kind of tastes similar. These, I would say, are as different as different bourbons on the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like they're same style of whiskey, but like they're so different. You know, does that make sense?
This smells like a Victoria sponge cake with fresh fruit on top. Like I want to eat that. I want to shove a giant slice of cake with fresh berries in my mouth after smelling this whiskey. It is sponge cake, Victoria sponge cake with like a little layer of jam or like vanilla cream in there, and then all just like fresh berries, like raspberry, blueberry. There's like apricot, pear. Oh my gosh.
I think that description is one I would have never come up with, but it couldn't be more accurate. I mean, that's like spot on.
It smells so good.
The sweetness. So maybe kind of honing on that, because this one is sweet. It's called Sweet Moment. It is, of course, sweeter. But what is it? I mean, did you say strawberry earlier? Is it like
So I obviously baked goods are like my favorite thing in the whole world, outside of whiskey, of course. But so typically like a Victoria sponge cake is like a sponge cake with like a jam or like a vanilla cream on the inside. And then it has like a powdered sugar kind of dusted on the top. And that sweetness I'm getting is almost like that powdered sugar on the top. But like the aromas are all big fruit, like raspberry, blueberry, like apricot, pear. There is like I could see almost like a little strawberry, but almost like more cherry for me on the nose. Oh, I want to taste it. Okay, cheers.
Cheers. And while you're tasting I'm just appreciate all the comments coming through. Just to confirm, yeah, these are all distilled on the same date. And aged in the same cask. Now, we can't speak for the distillery that acquired the bourbon barrels from the first time. And I appreciate some comments coming through that, yes, bourbon could be different. What's inside. Absolutely true. I think sorry, go ahead.
We can maybe take a guess based off who owns this distillery.
No, but I saw a comment. Correct. Yeah, that's a good point. That, oftentimes, Scotch whiskey distilleries will import bourbon barrels from distilleries owned by the same parent company, like if that's the case. But otherwise, you can get them other places as well. I would just say, based on my experience with exporting of bourbon, or rather importing of bourbon to cask to Scotland, usually it's probably going to be from the same batch. It's probably to come off the line. Bourbon distillery is going to dump the bourbon, send off all the barrels like in sequence. Like have some contract in place to just offload those. So is it possible that like some of them were from a different bourbon mash bill? Maybe. But the whole point of this showcase, and I assume that this is the case, is purely to show that the interaction between the liquid and the wood in the cask, that is, as with respects as similar as possible, could still be dramatically different. That it is actually the breathability of the cask that can impact flavor more so. But yeah, there's so many factors, and so could always vary. So I like this comment too. Gregory says cooperage staves deal with a variety of source regions and seasoning time of staves. After that, it's just a matter of dunnage placement. No two barrels alike, even in strictly controlled trials. And that's a good point. Yeah. I mean, the wood itself is natural, and it's a natural product. And you're right. In my hypothetical scenario of chopping down one tree and only building a barrel from that one tree, how likely is that? Probably not very. Jenna's like, I did not want to talk about the lumber industry tonight.
No, all of these things make a difference, right? I just equate all whiskey things to like cooking or baking. Like if I used a flour that was from, a certain place, or like the terroir of my flour, that's going to make a difference in my cake. Like all of those things do make a difference. But I was just really kind of thinking of how I'm going to describe the palate of this whiskey.
You describe
okay.
Good.
So the first one is like very like rich and like it's like waves of just like luxury on your palate, right? And it's just like ooey and gooey, and you just want to sit back and like be fanned and eat grapes, and it's like it totally is just like luxurious, right? So this one is like a little more tight on the palate, right? And it's a little sweeter. This one's definitely sweeter than the first one. That first one's like luxury in the forest, right? This reminds me of like candy shops and like sweet shops and like cakes and just like, I don't know, it's like a Mary Poppins kind of whiskey, a little bit tighter as far as like the delivery of flavor, but really, really good and very different from the first one. Like crazy. What do you think?
I mean, I've never been fanned while eating grapes before, but I mean, I think
I
that's
haven't
amazing.
either,
Like,
but
I would drink this entire bottle if someone's fanning me grapes. Like, yeah, I would not stop. I wouldn't even have water. It's spot on that it definitely. I don't think like the environments that my mind takes me to when tasting these whiskeys are nearly as complex as yours. I was like, yeah, on an orchard at sunset. I thought that was pretty.
that sounds great too. I would be there right now.
Yeah, I mean,
orchard at sunset,
like wearing flip flops while rubbing my toes into the grass that just was with the dew, morning dew, even though it's sunset. I just, but these are the first two are concretely different. I think maybe if we do all three, we'll really kind of summarize the three and what to pair with them and you know, if you want to get all three and do this experiment at home, obviously that's the whole point. We're making that available, so it's amazing opportunity. But if you want to just try one of these, you know, we want to help you decide which one is best for you. So yeah, I definitely these are very different, and I do think
very different.
They're probably different days, different environments, different times. I would enjoy these for different reasons, which is kind of shocking.
I agree.
Yes.
Should we dig into the last one and then we can kind of bring it all together?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait. But before we do that, I got to read the tasting notes.
Yes.
So this says orange blossom oil was followed by lemon vanilla custard slices, diluted buttered croissant, and spongy apricot and marzipan biscuit. So it is spongy. It's a spongy whiskey.
Yeah. Wow. That was... as described is how I'd call that one. Yeah. Shall we go to number 3, third and final?
Let's do it.
So I've added some water to the first two. So I was going to make a comment on the color. They're all pretty similar. I mean, again, it was, I suppose you would expect. But this one did seem a little darker for whatever reason. This is, let me get rid of that banner and put up the third one, is 19.63 leftovers in the pantry. That was my dinner tonight.
I like that.
And guess what? 18 years Highland, spicy and sweet, first fill ex bourbon barrel, 58.6%, $210. Distilled on the 17th of February 2003. I should mention it's the same distillation date for all three of these. And yes, I too thought, oh my God, 2003, that was that long ago. Like it's almost.
I was in high school.
Yes, we're exactly the same age. I think you and I.
Yeah, I think you're just a couple of days older than me.
Which month is your birthday?
I'm March 11th. You're like March 8th.
No. I'm 9 days older than you. I'm March 2nd.
You're March 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I am 9 days older than you. So if we were the cast and you were to do a dive, the only thing, look how different Jenna and I are. We were born like almost the exact same time. Look how different we are. You know, that's exactly how whiskey maturation works, everybody. I mean, that's what we're here for. So what flavor profile would you be? We'd probably be a different flavor profile.
Okay, I'm curious to know what you would be. Okay, so let's just blurt it out.
No. Leave it up to the chat. Leave it up to the chat to decide. First of all,
what flavor
profile am I? Do we need to show the flavor profiles? You sure? Maybe. I don't know.
Do you have a
screenshot? I don't have one readily available to do a screenshot.
I don't have one either.
Which flavor profile would I be?
Yeah, what flavor
What did you
profile
do?
is Ben? What flavor profile am I?
And I'll prepare an answer as well for
I
which
already know what I would pick. So,
for yourself.
yeah.
I gotta look back at all the colors. I think I know which one I am. I don't like it.
You don't like it? I love mine. I love what I think I am.
Oh, okay.
So,
Whiskey says sounds like sorry. Northwoods, I clicked on yours by accident, but thank you for commenting. I was laughing at this one. Important Whiskey says sounds like a buzz quiz. I don't know why that's funny.
what flavor profile? Wait, we did have a quiz. There was a quiz last year that the UK put out about what flavor profile you are. I took the quiz and I got exactly the flavor profile.
Oh my! I forgot about that.
So I'm confident that.
Okay. We're answers are coming through all over the place. I don't see any two people who have agreed on Jenna's personal identification of the flavor profile or personal assignment. I would say she was assigned this. Juicy Oak and Villanella says Daniel Cleric.
I just believe I am this particular flavor profile.
Jenna Spicy and Dry. I don't know if that dry. Oh, that's the one you want to be, isn't it? I see.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it totally is.
It's not.
Jenna says oily and coastal. That's the one she wants to be.
That is the one I know I am. And I actually talked to John quite a bit. So he maybe has a little inside, I don't know, clue or something. I don't know, because I do talk to John quite.
You think you're oily and coastal?
Yes. A little weird, a little I don't know, it's not for everyone. I don't know. And also in her profile.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
what are you?
I've not really thought of this before, but this would be a good theme for next week when we taste 12 flavor profiles in 1 hour. But I don't know what I would be. I would definitely. I was gonna put you as young and sprightly, but I think that's because you really like those. You have a unique infatuation for that flavor profile.
Yeah,
and I think that's young and
sprightly. We don't see him too often.
Yeah. Duke, Mikhail, Ben, Spicy, and Dry. Which one did you think I was?
Honestly, I would put you in Old and Dignified.
Whoa. Because I'm 9 days older than you?
No. The reason for that is because I really look up to you when it comes to I'm serious.
Oh, here we go. Okay. I need a whiskey.
And I'm serious. And you are so knowledgeable and you have such a refined palate. And I've learned a lot from you. And that is why I would put you as Old and Dignified.
Thank you, Jenna. That's very kind of you. I did not expect this. I quite frankly, I forgot Old and Dignified was a flavor profile because we so seldom see any whiskeys from that one.
Yeah.
I also have an issue because it's not really a flavor. But that's me, I guess. Old and Dignified. Kind of funny that I called you young and sprightly. You called me old and dignified.
We're 9 days apart.
We're 9 days apart in age and real life. Yeah. See, just the whole point here is that no two people are alike, and no two cups are alike. Let's get to number 3, because while you were embarrassing and humbling me with that compliment, I had to instantly just put something in my palate, and I realized it was the third whiskey. So leftovers in the pantry. Here we go. Spicy and sweet flavor profile. And so I think usually Super D says he's blushing. I don't blush. Guys, comments Monday night. Man, these comments are just on fire right now. It's a fire comment. Quick, change the subject. Jen and I go all the way back. We've known each other for years. I kind of forgot we were 9 days apart in age. I knew we were born the same year, but yeah, we've been doing this whiskey thing for a while. So, sorry, I was reading the comment. All right, number 3. What do you think? First impressions?
There's almost like a butterscotchy, like a very diluted butterscotchy note I'm getting on this. And like lemonade, iced tea, like an Arnold Palmer meets. Yeah.
Vodka. That would be called a John Daly.
No, it's not.
I had a bunch of those in the course. Okay. This is extraordinary. I'm just gonna. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna blurt it. This was just fantastic. On the nose. This is really something. And we will do a quick little recap of the three together at the end. This is the most evocative and complex, just on the nose.
I agree. I think it goes like back and forth for me. Like that first one was just so intense in like every way. But this one is definitely more like, this is like one of those whiskeys that you have to like spend some time with to like really figure out.
It's very rich. It's very malty. There's like a little bit of like a maple syrup. Again, same spirit off the stills, aged in different barrels, but it's sort of a very oily, just aroma, or at least an aroma that suggests, the whiskey's gonna be oily. I'm curious, everybody in chat, do you ever experience that? You ever nose a whiskey and like get an impression of the texture? Does that sound crazy? Did you do that? No?
Yes, all the time. This smells like oily or like Vaseline. I think that is a huge component of like nosing and tasting whiskey. Texture is so important. And I never really like understood the importance of texture. Like just getting into whiskey, like things I eat, things I drink, like I'm always like nosing them, tasting them differently, like noticing like the important things like texture. And I didn't really do all of that before I really got into whiskey. So I think texture is so important.
This is, again, we'll do a comparison of the three, but this is, totally different.
Yeah. There's like old grandma butterscotch candies and an Arnold Palmer.
Oh, those old grandma, the Werthers?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
Like, or no, the little yellow, like the yellow wrapper, like
candies. Talking about 1950s nostalgia. Those are like,
yeah, the grandma candies, like diluted, and then like
they just feel like they're like made in a steel factory, and just like, I don't know, I taste those, I'm like, I know this is not real flavor because this is it's like food dye used to make this, but like, it tastes so good. Eric says, texture, mouthfeel, and development are really important, but many whiskey tubers only comment on aroma and flavor. That has been my observation as well. And that's totally fine. I can't speak for whiskey tubers, but we're kind of in a unique position where every whiskey we taste is non-chill filtered. And so consistently everything is obviously in sort of its natural presentation. And so textures kind of really vary, and none of that is really filtered out ever. So maybe that's part of the reason why, but I just think like you have all these different senses, and to use them all is, I don't know. Why limit it to only two?
That's the cool thing about being able to like really tap into these whiskeys, is you get to just like, always tell people like in like tastings and stuff, it's like, look, when you smell something, like we all have this like Rolodex in our head, right? Of all of these like aromas and profiles and flavors and textures. And when you taste a whiskey, it just gives you that opportunity to just like open up that Rolodex and try to find where, that whiskey fits. And that's what I personally love about whiskey, is that it's just it's a full ride from nose to palate to finish to texture to what it makes you feel to where it takes you. And I mean, what else can really do that? Can't taste a book. Getting sentimental tonight. Sorry.
Like the days of eating books, or what's? No, it's precisely why we are here, is to taste these whiskeys and just share our takes on them. And
Yeah.
it would be ridiculous, in my opinion. This is an editorial stream. It would be ridiculous to expect anybody to, I've seen it scroll across the screen, $210 a bottle, to spend $210 a bottle of a whiskey and not have an experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's exactly what we're doing here is, and celebrating those experiences. So let's talk about the experience of all three though. What did you think? I'm curious to hear kind of just from you, like your overall summary of these three. I'm going to put this thing scroller away. Again, just a real quick recap. We had three whiskeys, all from Distillery 19, sort of like northeastern Highlands of Scotland. Northeastern. Yeah, I mean, well, eastern Scotland, not really north, because I'm just trying to think. I don't have a map in front of me. Just outside of Aberdeen, I want to say. But all three from the same distillery, all distilled on the same date, aged in the same type of cask, a first fill bourbon barrel for 18 years, and three different flavor profiles. So what do you think, starting of all three?
So I really love the first one, but I love it because it makes me want to be outside, like hiking in the forest, like just in like a damp wood somewhere with great boots on. And I really just love that like earthy pine, just like warm profiles that gives me. So I really love the first one. The second one for me is like a little bit sweeter. So this is kind of like a warm, maybe like summer day or spring day. I think that if you just want something like a little dessert or a little after dinner, dram that's a little bit sweet, I think this is definitely a great whiskey for that. And the last one is like a little more complex. This is one that I would like want to share with my whiskey friends, like people who really love to like nerd out on whiskey. Because I think you could really dig into that whiskey for quite some time and really try and figure it out, because there's a lot going on in that whiskey. And I think texturally, because we've been talking about texture, I got the most like textural impact on the first one. And I don't know if that was just because it was the first like actual whiskey that I had enjoyed today. But that's a very brief take of the three.
I just tasted all three in the original order of 1, 2, 3. Or as you were kind of talking about those, just to kind of like catch up, and I've had water to every glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the first one is the fruitiest, the most tropical. Again, when I described it, I feel like when we did the tasting, I didn't describe it as tropical, but with given the context and having tasted the other two and going back to it, all of a sudden it seems like the most lively,
Yeah.
But I can't get over, from consistent with my first impression, my second one, I kind of was reminded of just the duality of something that is so fresh and fruity and vibrant, but also just equally complete. And the vibrancy is also carried out by the fact that it's cask strength and the alcohol is so high. It's just, there's like that white peppercorn like element going on because it's strong. But I love the complexity of it too. Like it's just, there was a lot. If we just had the first one, I could have stopped there and just said, I'm actually going to reach for this one often. And look at us, we have all these whiskeys behind us. So I was like, this could be my rotation. The second one, man, your description, Jenna, was like spot on with the sponge cake, or you're going in direction. I found that the character of it to be, don't get me wrong, let me explain when I say this, more traditional, what you would call feminine notes, a bit more floral in that sense. And I'm not saying like this is like feminine whiskey or women drink this whiskey. I'm just saying it reminded me of a lot of aromas where floral is like more pink and very more delicate and sweet. I mean, it's sweet. So maybe I'm a man, so I think of women as sweet. Most women. But man, that was like the second time I went back, I was like, this is so complex for different reasons. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The third one, it was almost like a summary of the first two. Like I felt like it has a little bit of everything.
That.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not the case, but by far, this is probably for me one of them, this last one, 19.63 leftovers in the pantry. Probably one of the most enjoyable whiskeys I've had ever in the spicy and sweet flavor profile.
Yeah, I could co-sign on that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you were talking about the first one and you picked up on those tropical notes, so I didn't necessarily pick up on that, but one of my favorite casks in the Juicy Oak and Vanilla flavor profile is actually one of my hidden gems. I think it was like 46.1, I don't know, Dark and Tropical Path. So I picked up a lot of pine on that as well. A different distillery, like different like all different. But I did pick up on like this like very just like woody pine note. And I found that in this whiskey. And when I was tasting it and I picked up on that note, I was like, this is interesting. This is now the second time that I've picked up on this note. And that first whiskey from Distillery 46 is super tropical. But I didn't so much pick up on like the tropical notes. I picked up on more on like the raspberry, strawberry, like blueberry, apricot kind of notes. And it's just really interesting to hear that you picked up on the tropical aspect of that whiskey. So I don't know if it's a new note in like first fill ex bourbon that I'm picking up. And I actually think that that cask is first fill ex bourbon. So that's really interesting I'm going to have to taste those side by side and kind of do a deeper dive, so to speak. But yeah, these are three just very different, very, very good whiskeys. And it's interesting to hear that it sounds like to me you're leaning more towards the 19.63.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think what we owe it to everybody in chat too is, the time and a place for each one. And
For sure.
I think the first one is a daytime dram. And now in comparison, I feel like it's a daytime dram, like a Saturday, late morning, early afternoon, out in the park type of thing. For me, you have much better environmental descriptors, or the whiskeys than I do. But the second one is kind of, I don't know, and the last one is not. I'll just jump into the third one. The last one's kind of, for me, it's like kind of an evening, like relaxing type of, a high noon dram.
A high noon dram.
High noon dram. Spot on. Exactly. This was because I called a whiskey notes feminine. Well, yeah, that's me.
I think that for me, the first one is like if Jarrell took me out to a very nice dinner.
The first one?
Yeah. And we came home, and this is a whiskey that I would want to pour after that. Like after eating like 100 oysters, because like my favorite thing in the whole world.
You're in coastal when you're like my dream date is.
Dude, I'm telling you, oysters are like, I would eat 1,000 oysters in a setting if I could. It is one of my favorite things on the whole planet. But if he took me out for a really nice dinner and just really beautiful profiles, this is a whiskey that I would want to come home and pour and enjoy at the end of that. The second whiskey was, for me, like you said, the first one was a daytime dram. This was more daytime to me, like just bright, and I want to be out in a park with friends sharing this whiskey. It's sweet, it's lively, it's super fruit forward. And that last whiskey is that's one that that's a whiskey I would want to have with somebody like you, or just a whiskey nerd to kind of really kind of dig in and be nerdy about, because there's just so much happening in there that it's a just freaking, I'm not going to say a bad word, but it's just a really freaking good whiskey. That last one.
Yeah. So that's what we got.
There it is.
That's the tea. I think, Jenna, I think I'm sure everybody in chat probably appreciates your descriptions. I think we're spot on with all of these. And it is a fun exercise, and it's not one that you get to do often, tasting three whiskeys cut from the same cloth, quite literally. But yeah, so tomorrow these three will be available. You can order them individually. And what do we say? That's about $210 a bottle. Each one's $210
a bottle. And if you want to order the bundle of all three, it's $545 for the bundle for all three.
So you save $85 if my math. So you save $85 if you do all three together. Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Jenna, for
thank you
being here and sharing your experience, and thank you for everybody in chat we'll keep this just about an hour long. Really appreciate you doing this. You say something?
Yeah, can I give just a quick little? There's been quite a few comments about the Discord channel. If you do want to be invited to the Discord channel, it's not something that we've like put out in an email or anything. It's literally something we just talk about in these streams. And there's a lot of great conversation going on. I saw a couple comments about it. So if you are not in the Discord channel, please email me at Jenna, Jenna @smwsa.com and send me your name and I'll vet you, essentially make sure you're a member because it is for members only. And I will get that invite sent over to you. It's a lot of fun in there. So if you want to be a part of that, please, again, do send me an email, Jenna @smwsa.com, and I'll get you added into the group.
I'm in the Discord right now. I'm reading all the comments. Yeah, man, I appreciate everybody contributing everything. So,
and I'll say one more thing. Because this is what I'm going to do, because there's a lot to talk about. We did today put out our email for our Outram Preview tastings, our in-person tastings for the month of October. So we hope to see many of you there. And you can find all of that information in your inbox or on our website under the events tab. It'll have all of the events that we are hosting for our October Outram Preview tastings. So if you are in any of the cities that we are going to be at, please come join us. We'd love to see you.
Yes, and if you're in New York on Monday for the kickoff of the gathering, we'll both be there in person. The first in-person tasting event for all of us.
It'll be nice to see you too.
So, yep, just me and my old and
dignified ways.
Oldest with what little dignity I have left. Yes.
Okay, I'll be the young and sprightly one at the tasting.
Yeah. I have to say, I think the Oiling Coastal is probably the appropriate fit. I think that is more accurate. When you said like some people like me, some people don't like me, I was like, I think everybody likes you. So I wasn't going with it right away, because I'm like, I don't really. Or you said like I'm not for everyone. That's a bit of my experience. So I was like, I don't know. I kind of wrote that off, but you're Oiling Coastal.
Well,
thanks,
I'll take it.
Cheers. See you next time.
Yep. All right. Cheers.